My son threw a massive birthday bash for my grandson. 500 people showed up. But when I got there, a security guard stopped me and said, "Sorry, ma'am, this party is for close family only." I gave him a smile. I made one call. That was all it took. The whole room went quiet. If you're reading this, I'm glad you're here. Stick around till the end, and let me know what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story spreads. I stood there gripping a small wrapped present, watching streams of people walk into the ballroom while a security guard stood in my way like I didn't belong. The insult hit deeper than anything else. I was being shut out of my own grandson's birthday. "Sorry, ma'am, this is for family only," he said again, calm and clipped, like he'd been trained for it. His name tag said Deshaun, and he wouldn't meet my eyes. Family only. That hit like a punch. I am family. I'm Desmond's grandmother. I've been in that boy's life since the day he was born, 7 years ago. There's gotta be some mistake, I told him, trying to stay calm. "I'm Irene Dillard. Desmond is my grandson." Deshaun shifted and looked down at his clipboard. "I'm sorry, ma'am, you're not on the approved list." The guest list was very specific. Through the glass I could see the whole setup. Huge bounce, house shaped like a castle, tables covered in royal blue, balloons everywhere. The kind of party that costs more than most folks' monthly rent. Keith, my son, clearly went all out for Desmond's birthday. "Could you please check with my son, Keith Dillard? He's the father." "I'll need to confirm with Mrs. Dillard," Deshaun said, reaching for his radio. But before he spoke into it, I heard heels clicking across the floor. Brielle walked up, flawless, in her designer dress and salon-perfect hair. She was only 32, but she walked like someone who never heard the word no in her life. "Irene," she said with a fake little gasp, "what are you doing here?" That question landed hard. What was I doing here? I came to celebrate Desmond's birthday, just like I had every year since he was born, like any grandmother would. "I'm here for Desmond's party," I said, barely audible. I brought him a gift. Her red lips curled into what someone else might have called a smile, but on her face it looked like a warning. "Oh, sweetie, didn't Keith tell you? We decided to keep it small this year, just immediate family." I looked over her shoulder into the room, co-workers, neighbors, people I'd never seen before. 300 people, but I wasn't immediate family enough. "Brielle, please," I said, my voice breaking. "I just want to see Desmond, just to say happy birthday." "He's got his friends with him right now," she said, not budging from the doorway. "Maybe next time we can plan something more fitting, more appropriate." The word hung in my mind like smoke as I stood there with a present I wasn't allowed to give, for a child I helped raise, the same child I watched during her spa appointments and mall runs. The one I held through sleepless nights when he cried for hours and she complained about the noise. "Where's Keith?" I asked, scanning the room. "I need to talk to my son. He's busy running the party," Brielle answered smoothly. "You know how it goes. So much to manage." Through the glass, I spotted Desmond, tiny and sharp in his little suit, darting between tables, laughing like he didn't have a care in the world. My chest ached with a kind of grief I hadn't felt since the day my husband died. Pure, cold loneliness. I said I'd just leave it for him, handing the gift to Deshaun. It was a remote-controlled helicopter, something Desmond had been begging for, and I'd scrimped and saved for months to get it. "That's really sweet," Brielle said, but she didn't take it. "I'll make sure he gets it." The message was loud and clear. I wasn't welcome. In just 5 minutes, I went from being a cherished grandmother to someone who didn't belong. The same woman who had helped raise that boy was now being treated like a nobody. I turned to go, legs heavy like cement. Behind me, Brielle's voice rang out, chipper and warm, as she welcomed more guests. "Welcome, come in, Desmond's going to be so excited to see you." The parking lot felt like a wasteland as I walked to my car. Other guests strolled past, dressed to the nines and buzzing about the party I was just pushed out of. A few gave polite nods, but most didn't even look at me. I sat in my car for a while, staring down at the gift in my lap. 7 years old. Desmond had just turned 7, and I wasn't at his party because his mother decided I wasn't real family. Still, something started shifting inside me. The pain was sharp, still fresh, but under that was something colder, tougher, something that had been building for months as I watched Brielle work her little games, always needing something, always making me feel like I was somehow lacking. I pulled up my contacts and found the name I needed. I hovered a moment before tapping it. There'd be no undoing this. The phone rang twice. Heritage Federal Bank. This is Monique. How can I help you? Monique, this is Irene Dillard. I need to talk to you about my daughter-in-law's accounts. The party was still in full swing when I ended the call 20 minutes later. Through the windows, I could see everyone laughing, eating, celebrating. I sat alone in my car, but I wasn't helpless. Not anymore. I started the engine and pulled away, the gift still on the passenger seat. Desmond would get his present, eventually. But first, his mother was about to learn what consequences felt like. On the drive home, my thoughts kept circling one thing. How did I end up the villain in my own family? When did loving my grandson become some kind of offense? The answer hit me as I turned into my driveway. It started the moment Brielle figured out I had money. 8 years ago, when Keith brought her over for the first time, I thought she was beautiful, full of energy. My son looked happier than he had in years, since before college. She was a receptionist at a dental clinic. Nothing flashy, but she had dreams, big ones. I want to give Keith the life he deserves, she told me one morning over coffee. He works so hard, and I just want to support him. I was taken in by her drive, her love for my son. When they got married 6 months later, I couldn't have been happier. Keith finally found someone who'd look out for him like his father, and I always had. The first request came on their honeymoon. They were in Bali, and Brielle called me crying. The rental car broke down, and they needed help covering the cost. $500. Not a ton, but enough to get them back on track. I'm so embarrassed to ask, she said through tears, but we put everything into the wedding, and we just want this trip to be perfect. I sent the money without blinking. What kind of mother wouldn't want her son's honeymoon to go smoothly? Then came the apartment deposit. First, it was the furniture for their new home. Then came Brielle's student loans, which she claimed kept her up at night. It's affecting my health, she said, pressing her hand to her chest like it hurt to breathe. The doctor says stress messes with fertility, and we want to give you grandkids so badly. That one hit hard. The idea of grandchildren dangled in front of me like bait, and I bit. I wiped out her loans, $23,000, without thinking twice. When Desmond was born, I assumed the asks would stop. We had our grandchild. The goal was met. But pregnancy, Brielle said, had cost them more than they expected. The medical bills were brutal, even with insurance. I hate to ask, she said, bouncing Desmond on her hip, but we're drowning. Another $12,000, this time for my grandson's sake. That's how it always was. One issue after another, each one just serious enough to demand urgent help. Daycare was too expensive. Could I pitch in, just for now, while Brielle looked for a better job? 2 years later, I was still sending $800 every month. Their apartment got too cramped. The bank needed a cosigner with solid credit. Could I help them get a house? It was for Desmond. He needed space to run, a yard to play in. So I co-signed for a house that cost more than anything I'd ever owned. When they struggled with the mortgage, I made up the shortfall. When they needed furniture to fill the extra space, I helped again. When the roof leaked, when the car died, when Brielle's mother needed treatment, I covered it. But it wasn't just the money. It was how, she asked, the tears, the frantic voicemails, the way she made me feel like I was the only thing standing between my family and collapse. You're such a blessing, she'd say, her voice shaking. I don't know what we'd do without you. Desmond's so lucky to have a grandmother who loves him this much. The praise hit me in a place that had been empty for years. After a quiet retirement and too much silence, I felt useful again, needed, like I was making a difference in Desmond's future. But the thank yous started sounding rehearsed. The emergencies came faster, the costs climbed higher, and something in Brielle's tone began to change. It started small. You spoil him, she said one day, when I brought Desmond some toys. We're trying to teach him to earn things. Then it was the way she brushed off my parenting advice. Things are different now, she'd say with a smile that wasn't warm. We know more about child development these days. Over time, I was asked to babysit less and less. We're trying to set a routine, she explained. It's not personal, but it felt personal, especially when I'd see her out with friends, while Desmond sat in that pricey daycare I was still paying for. About 6 months ago, I noticed something else. Brielle had started spending like money grew on trees, designer purses, name-brand clothes, weekly salon visits. She joined an upscale gym, enrolled in art classes, and bought herself a luxury car. When I asked, she brushed it off. Keith's doing great at work, she said. We can finally treat ourselves a little, but I knew what Keith made. I'd helped him negotiate that raise. The numbers didn't add up. That's when I started digging, slowly, carefully. I didn't want to seem nosy, but what I found made my skin go cold. The money I'd been sending for Desmond, his daycare, his clothes, his activities, none of it had gone where Brielle said it would. She'd been funneling it into a separate account to bankroll a life that looked nothing like the one she claimed to be struggling through. The receipts I found in her purse the last time I visited spelled it all out. Spa appointments, high-end shopping, pricey dinners with her girlfriends, all paid for with money I sent to take care of my grandson. I'd unknowingly financed Brielle shift from a worn-down dental receptionist into someone who looked like she belonged on a reality show. While I was eating store-brand cereal and clipping coupons, she was out living it up on my sacrifices. That kind of betrayal doesn't bruise, it scars. I'd trusted her with more than money. I gave her my faith, my bond with Desmond, the part of me that still believed family meant something, and she used it to build a life where I didn't fit. Sitting there that night in my living room, staring at the unopened gift meant for my grandson's 7th birthday, it hit me. Something inside me had snapped. This wasn't heartbreak anymore. It was fury. I'd been a pawn for 8 straight years. Every tear she shed, every frantic call about some disaster, was all part of the game, to milk sympathy. And more importantly, money, from an old woman who just didn't want to be alone. I opened my laptop and pulled up my bank account. The numbers didn't lie. Over 8 years, I'd handed Brielle and Keith more than $80,000, my husband's life insurance, my retirement, my savings from decades of scrimping, and now, I wasn't even allowed to see the boy I did it all for. I picked up my phone and called the number I'd saved earlier that afternoon. Monique, it's Irene Dillard again. I need to know exactly how much I've sent to Brielle's personal account over the last year. As Monique pulled the records, I felt a sharp chill settle in my chest. It wasn't grief. It was justice. And tomorrow, at that party, everyone was going to see the truth behind their picture-perfect celebration. When I woke up the next morning, my mind was clearer than it had been in years. No more playing the fool. No more waiting for crumbs from people who only saw me as a bank account with a voice. I'd spent the night digging through every statement, every receipt, every single record I could find. The facts were damning. Monique from First National had gone above and beyond, probably more than she should have. But we'd known each other for 15 years. She helped manage my husband's accounts, guided me through widowhood, and handled the insurance payout. I've never seen anything quite like this, she said over the phone, voice low. Every deposit you made for Desmond went straight to her personal account, not 1 cent toward daycare or school or medical care. The total stunned me. Just in the past year, I'd sent $32,000 for so-called emergencies, daycare fees that were never paid, doctor bills already covered by insurance, school costs that were laughably inflated. But Monique had found something else. Mrs. Dillard, I also ran a credit check on your daughter-in-law. She's been using your financial background to secure some major purchases, luxury cars, high-limit credit cards, even a loan that appears tied to plastic surgery. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? She listed you as her primary financial reference. These companies approved her loans because of your history. She's been living on credit backed by your name. I hung up the phone nauseated. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was theft. It was identity fraud. She'd been living it up on my dime, using my money to bankroll a lifestyle her paycheck couldn't touch. Sitting in my kitchen with coffee in hand, I picked up my phone and made the call I'd been avoiding. Keith Dillard speaking. Keith, it's Mom. There was a pause. When he answered again, his tone was softer, but guarded. Hey, Mom, how are you? I got straight to it. I'm calling about yesterday, about the party. Another pause. Look, Mom, I'm sorry there was some mix-up with the guest list. Jovi was just trying to keep things under control. You know, 300 people is a lot. Mix-up, that's what he called it. Keith, I wasn't mixed up. I was left off the guest list for my grandson's birthday on purpose. Mom, don't do this. Don't make it a big thing. It wasn't personal. Really? Then maybe you can tell me how your coworkers from across 3 states got invites, but your own mother didn't. Silence. I could feel him scrambling, probably trying to word it in a way that wouldn't make his wife look bad. Jovi thought it'd be nicer to do something separate with you, smaller, more personal. When what? When what? Is this so-called personal celebration happening? More silence. We both knew there was no such plan. There never was. We'll figure something out, he said at last. Maybe next weekend. Keith, I need to ask you something, and I want the truth. How much do you think I've given you and Jovi over the past year? Mom, what's going on? Why are you bringing this up? Just answer me. I don't know. A few thousand, maybe. You helped with some of Desmond's stuff, and we really do appreciate it. A few thousand. I looked down at the bank statements spread across my kitchen table. Keith, I've given you $32,000 in the last 12 months alone. That can't be right. It's not only right, it's all recorded. Every transfer, every check, every deposit. 32 grand for daycare that was already paid, medical bills your insurance covered, and school supplies that must have cost more than a used car. Mom, I think you're mixed up about. I'm not mixed up. My voice cut sharper than I meant. I'm not mixed up. I'm not overreacting. And I'm not imagining any of this. Your wife has been stealing from me for years. Don't talk about Jovi like that. Like what? Like a thief. Because that's exactly what she is. Keith, she's been using the money I sent for Desmond to pay for spa visits, shopping hauls, and a high-end lifestyle. While I've been eating off-brand cereal and clipping coupons, she's been living like royalty with my money. You're being unfair, really. When's the last time you even saw a daycare receipt for Desmond? When's the last time you paid for his clothes or his extracurriculars? I can tell you, never. Because I've covered all of it, and none of it went where you thought. He exhaled deep. Even if that's true, and I'm not saying it is, you gave that money on your own. Nobody made you. That hit like a slap. You're right. Nobody made me. I gave it because I love my grandson and I wanted to help. But I didn't give it so your wife could get breast implants and cruise around in a BMW. Mom, that's out of line. No, Keith. What's out of line is pretending I can't see what's right in front of me. And your wife crossed that line a long time ago. I hung up before he could say anything else. My hands were trembling. Not from fear, but from the fury. The kind that comes when you finally stop lying to yourself that being used is some twisted version of love. I glanced at the clock. The party would still be going strong. All those people, all that joy, all that money blown on a kid whose grandmother wasn't even allowed through the door. I grabbed my phone and called Monique directly. Monique, it's Irene Dillard. I need you to freeze every account connected to Brielle Dillard. That meant any shared accounts, lines of credit, loans tied to my financial record. Are you sure, Mrs. Dillard? This is a pretty big move. Sure, I told her. Also, flag her accounts for anything shady, large cash pulls, strange spending habits, anything that looks like fraud. Understood. What about the accounts she shares with your son? I thought about Keith brushing me off, refusing to believe his wife might be lying. Freeze those too. If he's not helping, he's part of the problem. They're going to feel this right away, Monique warned. Cards will be declined, loans flagged, auto payments bounced. Good, I said. Maybe it's time they started living within their reality. When I hung up, I sat alone in the kitchen for a while. In one day, I'd gone from the family's silent ATM to pulling the plug on everything. This was going to ripple. There'd be calls, blame, threats. But for the first time in years, I felt like I was steering my own life again. I picked up my phone and dialed the number from the party invite I'd memorized. Stonebridge Hall, this is Jessica. Jessica, this is Irene Dillard. I believe there's a party in your main ballroom right now. A children's party. Yes, ma'am. The Dillard party. Are you calling about the event? Sort of. I'm calling to let you know the credit cards being used are about to be declined. The accounts were frozen for suspected fraud. There was a pause. Ma'am, I'm not sure I follow. You will. Very soon, a woman named Jovi Dillard is going to call you. Panicking. When she tries to pay, her cards won't go through. Just a heads up. Should I be worried about payment for the event? I thought about the money I'd unknowingly poured into a party I wasn't even welcome at. No, don't worry about the bill. Just make sure she knows actions have consequences, especially when you steal from family. I hung up and caught myself smiling. Really smiling. For the first time in months, things were about to get very real. I didn't have to wait long. My phone started ringing at 3:47, right around when the party would have been wrapping up. I let it go to voicemail. Then, it rang again, and again. By the fifth call, I picked up. "What did you do?" Jovi's voice was high, every word laced with panic. "I stopped bankrolling your lies," I said, settling into my chair. "You crazy old woman. Do you have any idea what you've done?" Everyone saw it. The cards got declined in front of 500 people at my own son's birthday party. That's funny. I was publicly humiliated yesterday too, and you didn't seem too torn up about it. This is totally different. You embarrassed me in front of everyone, the caterers threatening to call the cops, the coordinators holding my jewelry until we pay. She was still playing it big. Jovi always knew how to spin the spotlight, even in a crisis. Maybe you should have thought about that before you started stealing from me. I never stole anything from you. Everything you gave was your choice. Was it a choice when you lied about where the money was going? When you said Desmond needed new clothes, and you were really getting Botox? Silence, then, trying to sound calm. "Irene, I think there's been some kind of mix-up. Why don't you come over so we can talk this through like adults?" "I'm not interested in talking to you, Jovi. I want my money back. Your money. That was meant to help your grandson. And how much of it actually did? How much went to his daycare, his clothes, his extracurriculars? Let me make it easy for you. None. Not a dime. Every bit of it ended up in your personal bank account so you could play dress up and pretend to be someone you're not." I heard her inhale, shaky and slow. "You're really going to tear this family apart over money." "I'm not tearing anything apart. I'm just done paying for your make-believe lifestyle. Keith's not going to let this slide. He'll never forgive you for this. Forgive me. I found out my daughter-in-law's been lying and stealing for years. I found out the woman I trusted with my grandson has been scamming me while making sure I barely saw him. You don't know what it's like. I'm under pressure. You have no idea what it takes to keep up appearances with Keith's coworkers, to make sure Desmond doesn't look like the poor kid at school. I did this for the family. No, you did it for yourself. And now you've been caught." The silence stretched. When she spoke again, her voice was different, cold. "You're making a mistake, Irene, a big one." "Is that a threat?" "It's a warning. You think cutting us off is the end of it? That Keith's going to pick you over me? That you'll just stroll back into Desmond's life?" The words landed, and she could tell. "You're not going to keep me from my grandson forever, can't I? I've been doing it for months and you didn't even realize. You really think yesterday was the first time I kept you away from him?" My stomach dropped. "What are you saying? Oh, Irene, you sweet, clueless woman. You thought all those cancelled plans were just bad luck? That Desmond just happened to be unavailable every time you asked to see him? I've been phasing you out of his life little by little, carefully, quietly, so you wouldn't catch on. And it worked like a charm. You're lying, am I? When was the last time you had real time with him? Just the two of you. When was the last time he called you, asked about you?" I couldn't answer. The truth was sitting heavy in my chest. "He barely remembers you anymore." Brielle kept going, her voice sharper now, feeding off my silence. "To him, you're just that old lady who sends money sometimes, and now that the money's dried up, you're nothing. Keith won't let this happen. Keith does whatever I say, just like you used to. Only difference, he's not going to wake up and realize I played him." The call ended. I just sat there, staring at the screen. Her voice still in my head, like a bad taste that wouldn't go away. She was right about one thing. I'd been played, but she had no idea who she was dealing with now. I wasn't the same woman who kept writing checks just to stay in their lives. My phone buzzed. A message from Keith. "We need to talk. Tonight, 7 p.m., our house. Our house. The one I co-signed for. Helped furnish. The one where I was suddenly a stranger." I replied, "I'll be there." At 7 sharp, I stood on the front porch of the house I helped pay for, ringing the bell like a guest. Keith opened the door. He looked worn out, like he hadn't slept in days. "Mom, what the hell is going on? Where's Brielle?" "She's upstairs with Desmond. He's still shaken from the party." I followed him inside, noticing how much had changed. The furniture was all brand new, pricey. The art on the walls screamed money. Even the coffee table books were picked for looks, not reading. "Keith, before anything else, I need you to hear me. I didn't do this to hurt you or Desmond. I did it because your wife was stealing from me." That's a heavy accusation. These aren't accusations. They're facts. I pulled out a folder I'd put together. Bank statements, credit reports, receipts I found stashed in Braille's purse. Every cent I gave you for Desmond went straight into her personal account. Not $1 went toward his care or anything meant for him. Keith took the folder like it burned to touch, his jaw tight as he flipped through the pages. Even if this is real, Mom, you can't just freeze our accounts out of nowhere. We've got bills, we've got obligations. You've got obligations. And I don't. What about my obligation to protect myself from being ripped off? You're blowing this out of proportion, am I? Your wife told me, flat out, that she's been keeping me away from my grandson on purpose. She's been rearranging his whole life to cut me out. Does that sound like someone grateful for what I've done? For the first time, Keith didn't look so sure. She wouldn't do that, wouldn't she? Then tell me, when did I last watch Desmond? When was the last time he came over to my house? When's the last time we shared anything that didn't involve me handing over money? Keith sat there silent, the papers scattered in his lap. The party mattered to her, he said quietly. She put months into planning it, with my money. Money she claimed was for Desmond. She's a good mom. No, she's a convincing liar. Big difference. Footsteps came from the stairs. Brielle stood in the doorway, her earlier panic scrubbed clean and replaced with something cold and calculated. She'd changed into something more modest, toned down her makeup. She looked like a wife and mother with everything under control, not the frantic woman who screamed at me over the phone. "Hello, Irene," she said calmly. "I'm glad you're here. We should clear the air. We should clear the accounts," I said. "Starting with you returning what you stole." "I didn't steal anything. You gave that money willingly." "I gave it based on a lie. That's fraud." She sat beside Keith and gently placed her hand on his arm. "Irene, I know you're upset, but calling it fraud, that's extreme, is it? Then tell me how $32,000 in supposed child expenses ended up funding your spa visits and shopping habits." "I did use some for myself, yeah, but I had to keep up a certain look for Keith's career. Image counts. Image counts." I let out a bitter laugh. "You mean the image of someone cruising around in a luxury SUV and draped in designer clothes while living off a mid-level salary? I was trying to help the family get ahead." "No, you were helping yourself, and you used my money to do it." Keith looked between us, clearly rattled. "Braille, is this true? About the money? It's more complicated than she's making it sound." "No, it's not," I said. "You lied to him. You lied to me. And you stole. Now the only thing left is what he's going to do about it." The room went quiet. I watched Keith's face as it sank in. Everything I said, every receipt in that folder, every lie, Brielle spun. He saw it now. His perfect wife had built their life off my retirement. "How much?" he asked, barely above a whisper. $87,000 over 8 years, I said, including the loans she took out using my name and assets, without my consent. Brielle jumped to her feet. "You can't prove any of that." "I can prove all of it. The banks got it on record, every last form, right down to the ones where you listed me as your primary financial source." For the first time since I met her, Brielle looked trapped. The mask cracked, and underneath it was panic. "Desmond needs a stable home," she said, her voice rising. "He needs a mom who's not worried about money, a family that looks like it's doing well. I did this for him. You did this for you," I said, standing up. "And it ends now." As I headed for the door, Brielle's voice hit me from behind, high-pitched, panicked. "You'll never see him again. I'll make sure of it." I didn't stop walking. "We'll see about that." I had one more call to make once I got home. This time, it wasn't the bank. I called my lawyer. Connie Marshall had been handling family law for 3 decades. She helped me sort out my husband's estate, walked me through the mess that comes with losing a partner. And now she was about to help me take my life back from a woman who'd been quietly tearing it apart. "This is a lot," Connie said, as she combed through the paperwork I brought in. "We're looking at financial fraud, identity theft, even potential elder abuse. Your daughter-in-law has been busy. Can we get my money back?" I asked. "We'll try," she said. "But what really matters is making sure she's held accountable. This isn't just about the money anymore, Irene. This is about defending your rights as a grandmother and protecting you from more damage." I'd been replaying Jovi's threats in my mind all night. How easily she admitted she'd been keeping Desmond from me. Her promise that I'd never see him again. The sheer cruelty of it. She'd threatened to shut me out of my grandson's life completely. Connie didn't blink. She can't legally do that without cause. Grandparents have rights, especially when there's proof the parent's behavior is questionable, and financial fraud is more than questionable. She leaned back and looked at me hard. But I need to ask, Irene, are you ready for what this'll do to your relationship with your son? This won't just touch Jovi. Keith's going to feel it too. I'd already asked myself that question more than once. Keith had chosen to stand behind his wife, even after seeing what she'd done. He waved off the evidence, brushed aside my pain, and acted like I was the problem. My relationship with Keith is already broken, I said softly. Maybe it's time he saw what happens when you keep making excuses for the wrong person. Connie nodded. All right, we'll start with a formal demand letter, full repayment of what she took, plus interest and legal fees. If she refuses, we move to file charges. How long will that take? I asked. Depends on how sharp she is. If she's smart, she'll settle fast and quiet. If she's not, Connie gave a dry smile. Well, fraud cases like this get media attention, especially when it's family exploiting family. I walked out of Connie's office more hopeful than I'd been in a long time. For the first time in years, someone was standing with me, and they saw this for what it was, not a mistake, a crime. The next morning, Keith got the letter at Jovi's house. By noon, my phone rang. Mom, what the hell is this? Keith sounded worn down. It's a demand for restitution. Your wife stole from me. I want my money back. She didn't steal anything. You gave her that money. I gave it because she lied to me. That's called fraud, Keith. And if you can't see it, you're part of the problem. You're going to wreck the whole family over money. I'm not wrecking anything. I'm protecting myself from people who think I'm just a wallet with a heartbeat. That's not true. Jovi cares about you. Jovi cares about my account balance, not the same thing. I could hear voices behind him. Then Jovi came on the line. Irene, this is getting out of control. We need to talk, like family. We did that yesterday. You told me I'd never see my grandson again. That's not family. I was upset. I didn't mean it. You meant every word, just like you meant it when you cut me out of Desmond's life and took my money at the same time. I never tried to keep you away from Desmond. Then tell me why every time we planned something, it got cancelled, why every visit kept getting pushed off, why I haven't been alone with my grandson in half a year. Nothing. Then, trying to sound calm, she goes, Irene, I think you're remembering it differently. Am I? Then let me speak to Desmond. Put him on. He's in school. It's Saturday. A beat. He's with a friend. Which friend? You don't know him. I'd like to. I'd like to know all of Desmond's friends. I'd like to be in his life the way grandmas should be. You are in his life. When exactly? When I'm covering bills? When I'm bailing you out again? When do I get to be a grandma instead of a wallet? You're not being fair. I'm being honest. Here's more truth. You've got 72 hours to respond to my lawyer. After that, we press charges. You wouldn't do that. Try me. I hung up and just sat there, strangely calm. The line had been crossed. No undoing it now. Then the phone rang. Lydia, Keith's oldest sister. She lives up in Burlington. Rarely gets into family messes, but I guess this one was loud enough. Irene, what is happening? Keith called me freaking out. Something about lawsuits and money. I explained everything straight. Just facts. Showed the pattern. Lies, manipulations, and how they'd boxed me out of Desmond's life. I had no clue it was this deep, Lydia said when I finished. I mean, I always knew Brielle was a lot, but this, did you know she was shutting me out too? I wondered why you stopped bringing him up. I figured you were busy. I figured I was being pushed aside because I wasn't needed. Turns out I was still needed, just not welcome. What can I do? That caught me off guard. I don't know. Maybe I just need someone to get that I'm not the bad guy. You're not the bad guy. You're the one they've been taking advantage of. And it's about time someone said that out loud. Keith thinks I'm tearing the family apart. Keith thinks whatever Brielle tells him to. Always has. I don't want to lose my son. Irene, you already have. But maybe this way, you still have a shot at Desmond. That night, I was making dinner when I heard a car pull in. I glanced out and saw Keith's. He came alone. I opened the door before he knocked. We need to talk, he said. Come in. He looked around like he'd never noticed anything in my house before. The old couch, the framed photos, the careful touches from someone stretching every dollar. It was nothing like the home I helped him buy, the lifestyle I helped him keep. I found the receipts, he said quietly. What receipts? The ones Brielle hid. Spa days, shopping, all kinds of stuff. You found them where? In her car. I eased down into a chair. How much are we talking? Thousands more. Racked up on credit cards I didn't even know existed. Credit cards tied to my accounts. He nodded, shame written all over him. She said it was just to build credit. She said it was short-term. Nothing about Brielle is short-term. She's been laying this out for years. I asked her about the money, about keeping you away from Desmond. She didn't even try to lie. What did she say? She said you're too controlling, too involved. She told me she was protecting our family from you. And you bought that. I wanted to. It was easier than facing the truth, that my wife had been lying to me for years. Keith dropped into a chair, buried his face in his hands. I've been such an idiot. Yeah, you have. But she had me fooled, too. So what now? That's up to you. Figure out who you want to be. Are you going to be the guy who looks the other way while his wife scams people? Or are you going to be the guy who stands up for what's right? She's not some scammer. She's just overwhelmed, under pressure. No, Keith. She zeroed in on a grieving widow and milked her affection for her grandson. She didn't do it out of fear. She did it because she knew she could get away with it. The house, the cars, the whole picture-perfect life, all paid for with your money. That's right. So now what? Now it's your call. You can keep acting like this was just a misunderstanding, or you can help me make sure she never gets to pull this again. If I go along with you, she'll leave. She'll take Desmond with her. If you don't, you're losing both of us anyway. The only difference is, if you do the right thing, you might still earn back a little respect from me, and maybe one day, from your son. Keith didn't say anything for a while. Outside, the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across my backyard. I need time to think, he finally said. You've got 72 hours, then the lawyers take over. He stood, took a few steps, then looked back. Mom, I'm sorry. I should have known. I should have protected you. Yeah, you should have. But you didn't. So what are you going to do about it now? After he walked out, I stayed there in the living room, surrounded by everything I'd built over the years, on my own, by my own rules. By tomorrow, I'd either have my family back or lose them for good. Either way, I wasn't going to be anyone's victim again. 3 months later, I was sitting in the garden, watching my grandson fly the remote control helicopter I'd given him, the same one I'd brought to his birthday party, the one I wasn't allowed to attend. Grandma Irene, look how high it goes. Desmond shouted, eyes lit up with joy. Careful near the trees, I called back, smiling at the pure happiness in his voice. Getting to this point hadn't been smooth. After that talk with Keith, things got worse before they got better. Brielle threw everything she had at stopping the restitution. She cried, threatened, manipulated, then turned to legal tricks that only made her look worse. She tried to make me the villain, some bitter old lady who couldn't handle her son moving on, said I was imagining the financial abuse, that I had memory issues, that I was jealous of her bond with Keith. But Connie was right. The truth was, in black and white, bank records don't lie. You can't fake credit applications. Faced with possible criminal charges, Brielle finally backed down. The settlement covered everything, $87,000 plus interest and legal fees, a clean break financially, and most important, a legally binding agreement that ensured I'd never be kept from Desmond again. But the real win wasn't the money. It was watching Keith finally see who she really was. The divorce was finalized last month. Brielle tried to fight for custody, but her financial crimes sank her case. She got supervised visits and a child support order, a bitter twist, considering she'd never supported anyone before. She moved back in with her mom in Arkansas, Keith said during one of our weekly dinners. She's working at a call center and living in a studio. Turns out, reality's got nothing on the fantasy life she built using your money. I felt a flicker of sympathy, but only for a second. She made her choices. Now she gets to live with them. How's Desmond doing with everything? Honestly, better than I thought. He misses her, sure, but he seems lighter, calmer, like he can finally breathe. I knew exactly what he meant. Kids pick up on the tension, even when we think we're hiding it. Desmond had been stuck in a house built on lies, paid for with stolen money, held together by control. Now he was in a smaller place, with less stuff, but the truth lived there. Grandma, Can we make cookies now? Desmond came running up to the porch swing. Of course, sweetie. What kind do you want? Chocolate chip with extra chips. I laughed, thinking about all the times Brielle had lectured me for giving him too many sweets, accused me of messing up their parenting just by spoiling him a little. Now I could do it freely, the way grandmas are meant to. While we measured out flour and sugar in the kitchen, he told me about school, his buddies, what he wanted to do over the summer. He'd changed, he was more open now, more trusting. That cautious wall he'd built over the past year was gone. Grandma, can I ask you something? Of course, honey. Why did Mummy go away? I stopped, thinking through how to say it. Keith and I had agreed to keep things simple and age-appropriate, to protect him from the worst parts of what his mom had done. Sometimes adults mess up, sweetheart. Your mom made some bad choices that hurt people, and now she has to deal with the consequences. Did she hurt you? Yeah, she did. But that's not on you, and it doesn't change how much I love you. I'm glad I'm here more now. Me too, baby. Me too. That night, after Keith picked up Desmond, I sat out on the porch with a glass of wine and watched the sky shift from gold to pink. My phone buzzed. A text from Lydia. Saw the pictures of you and Desmond baking. You both look so happy. I'm proud of you for fighting for him. I smiled and replied, best decision I ever made. It was. Standing up to Brielle had scared me to death, but it gave me my life back. I wasn't just a provider anymore, or someone expected to clean up other people's messes. I was a grandmother who loved her grandson, a mother who deserved to be heard, a woman who wasn't going to be used anymore. The money from the settlement helped me rebuild my retirement fund, but more than that, reminded me of my own value. I wasn't just a walking ATM for other people's ambitions. I was a human being, with limits, needs, and every right to demand respect. Keith and I were still working on our relationship. It wasn't fast, and it wasn't easy, but it was real now. Something it hadn't been in a long time. He'd had to face how much he let Brielle get away with, how often he looked the other way when it benefited him. I keep thinking about all the red flags I ignored. He'd told me once, the way she always had an excuse, the way she made you feel guilty just for asking questions. I should have caught on. She was good at it, I'd said. She made it easy to believe whatever we wanted to believe. But you caught up. You stood up to her. I got sick of feeling like a wallet instead of a person. Took me long enough, but I got there. Now, 3 months later, I was planning a real party for Desmond's 8th birthday. Not the over-the-top circus with 500 guests that kicked off this whole mess. Just a backyard barbecue, school friends, handmade decorations, and a grandma who was actually invited. I want to help, Keith said when I told him. I want to do it right this time. What do you mean? I want a party that's about Desmond, not about impressing people. I want everyone who loves him to be there. I'd smiled. That sounds perfect. As I finished my wine and headed inside, I thought about who I'd been just a year earlier. Lonely, manipulated, clinging to whatever crumbs of affection my family tossed my way. They saw me as a tool, not someone who mattered. That version of me was gone. Now, I knew my value and made sure others knew it too. My phone rang, pulling me out of my thoughts. The screen lit up with a number I didn't recognize. Hello, is this Irene Dillard? The voice on the other end was young, female, uneasy. Yes, this is she. Who's calling? My name is Anita Rhodes. I got your number through a mutual friend. I think my daughter-in-law is doing to me what yours did to you. I sat back down, already imagining a woman alone in her kitchen, surrounded by bills and receipts, wondering if she was losing her mind. Tell me what's going on, I said softly. For the next hour, I listened as Anita explained everything. The slow buildup of financial asks, the drawn-out stories behind each one, the subtle ways she was being edged out of her grandkids' lives. Every detail hit close to home. I just don't know what to do anymore, she said finally, her voice cracking. I love my son, but I can't keep going like this. You don't have to, I told her. You have choices. You've got legal rights, and you've got more strength than you realize. How do I even begin? Start writing everything down, every transfer, every ask, every excuse. Then talk to a lawyer. I'm scared. So was I. But you know what scared me more? Spending the rest of my life being used. We kept talking for another half hour. By the end, she sounded steadier, clearer. I gave her Connie's number and made her promise to call first thing Monday. When I hung up, I felt something shift. I wasn't just someone who'd made it out. I was someone who could help others find the way. 6 months later, I was back in Connie's office, this time with 3 other women who'd all been financially abused by family. We'd put together a small support group, swapping advice, sharing resources, and figuring out how to move forward from the mess left behind. "The hardest part," said Margaret, whose son-in-law had been draining her accounts for 5 years, "is facing the truth that someone you love sees you as a paycheck. But the most freeing part," Ruth added, whose daughter had been forging her name on checks, "is realizing you don't have to let it keep happening." I nodded, thinking back to that brutal day outside Desmond's birthday party, when everything finally fell apart. What saved me wasn't strength, it was just knowing I deserved more. Not because I was flawless, but because I was a person. And now I've got my grandson back. I've got my self-respect back. And I've got the certainty that no one's ever going to take that from me again. That afternoon, I picked up Desmond from school and took him to the park. As he ran toward the swings, laughing with his friends, I felt something settle in me. This was what the fight had been for. Not just to see my grandson, but to have a place in his world that I didn't have to beg for. "Grandma, push me higher," he shouted. "Hold on tight," I said, giving him a gentle shove that sent him sailing. As I watched him rise into the sky, light and fearless, I smiled. We were finally free. The house feels different now. Not quieter, just less heavy. Like the air isn't trying to press me down every time I breathe. I still wake up early, coffee already waiting in the machine. Still feed the birds out front, before the sun climbs over the hill, but something's shifted. I'm not waiting for a phone call that doesn't come. I'm not checking my bank account in dread, wondering what new emergency Brielle might invent this time. I'm not chasing a seat at a table I helped build. Instead, I go where I'm wanted. I speak when I have something to say, and I keep my peace when silence says more. The support group grew fast. Women from all walks of life, retirees, single moms, grandmothers who gave everything for family and wound up treated like spare change. Some of them still whisper when they talk, like saying it too loud might make it more real. Others are angry, and rightfully so. Me, I'm steady now. Not healed, not whole, but not bleeding either. Desmond comes over twice a week now, sometimes more. He started leaving things at my house on purpose. A toy train, his favorite stuffed elephant, a half-done Lego set, like he's claiming the space, like he knows it's his too. I don't tell him no. I just clear a drawer in the guest room and say, "Let's keep it here, baby. That way it's waiting for you." Keith and we're something like father and daughter again. Tentative, little bruised, but he shows up. Last month, he built raised beds for my vegetable garden without being asked. Said it was the least he could do. I didn't say thank you. I just handed him a cold drink and we worked in silence, side by side like old times. Sometimes presence says more than any apology ever could. I haven't heard from Brielle since the settlement closed. Last I checked, she was still trying to claw her way back to the life she built on someone else's back. She won't find it, not this time. And if she tries to reach Desmond through pity or poison, I'll be right there, calm, armed, and unapologetic. One morning last week, I got a letter in the mail, handwritten. Return address from a P.O. box in Missouri. Inside was a folded sheet and a photo. It was Brielle, no makeup, plain clothes, her hair pulled back. She looked older, tired. "Irene," the letter began, "I'm not asking for forgiveness. Just space to say what I never said. I was wrong." I read it twice, then once more. She admitted to the lies, the theft, even to manipulating Keith against me. She said she was in therapy now, working a retail job, trying to make amends where I can. At the bottom was one final line. "Tell Desmond I love him, if you think he'd want to know." I burned the letter in the fireplace. Not out of rage, just resolve. That part of the story is over. I won't let it back in, not even a whisper. What matters now is what I'm building. This house, this peace, this quiet little life that doesn't depend on anyone else's approval. Every Thursday, Desmond and I make dinner together. He chops the soft things with a kid-safe knife, talks non-stop about school and which kid cheated at kickball. I just listen, offer help only when asked, let him take up space. Tonight, he set the table himself, folded the napkins into funny shapes, and placed a name card at my seat, written in crayon, Queen Grandma. When I asked why, he shrugged. "Because you saved us." I didn't ask what he meant. Kids know more than we give them credit for. After dinner, he fell asleep watching an old cartoon on the couch. I sat beside him, brushing his curls back, and thought about the woman I used to be. Desperate to belong, always second-guessing myself, trading silence for peace, and money for love. That woman still lives in me, but she doesn't steer anymore. Now, I belong to myself. I built a life that fits, not one that looks good in pictures, but one that feels good in my bones, and I won't trade it for anyone's approval ever again. The past still taps on the windows sometimes. Memories of parties I wasn't invited to, birthdays I missed, family dinners that never had a seat for me, but I don't open the door. I've got better company now. Like Desmond, sleeping on my lap with cookie crumbs on his shirt. Like Keith, calling every Sunday just to talk. Like the women who show up to our little church basement group, one brave truth at a time. Like myself, whole and unsorry, finally free. Let the world keep spinning. I've got my corner, and it's enough. Because I may not have started this story as the hero, but I sure as hell get to finish it as one. The story we shared is fictional but drawn from real situations. Names and places have been changed to protect those involved. We don't tell this to judge, but to offer a moment of reflection. How many mothers are silently suffering inside their own homes? And truly, if it were you in my place, what would you do? Would you stay silent to keep the peace, or speak up to reclaim your life? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Because every story is a candle, lighting the way for someone else. God bless, and I believe courage leads us to better days. While you wait for those days, I've left 2 other stories on the screen, our most beloved ones. I know they'll surprise you. Thank you for staying until the very end.